We are creating a simple drag and drop exercise in Storyline 360. In this exercise, the user will sort food labels into unregulated and regulated categories, and each correct drop will give them 1 point, while an incorrect drop deducts a point. And the fun thing about this exercise is that when an item is dropped into a category, it will disappear. So before we add interactivity, we're gonna get our layout ready. Start by creating a shape, then add some text to it. This will be our first draggable element. I'm not gonna create the other elements just yet, we'll make this one interactive, and then we'll duplicate it later on to create the rest. Next up, insert 2 more shapes, these will be the drop zones, and add some labels to show users exactly where to place the items. And then make sure the drop zones are below the draggable elements in the timeline. Add other elements to your slide if needed, such as context or indications. The draggable elements are gonna stack in the center of the slide. Now, to track the score, create a variable. Add a new text box and add a reference to this variable. That way we'll be able to see our score increase or decrease as items are dropped. Now we need to add a layer. This will be the correct feedback layer, and I will add a green check mark on this layer, and I'm gonna give it these entrance and exit animations, and I will then make the timeline last for 1 second because I don't want this layer to be on screen for long. I just want to give a quick feedback to the user, and that's why I will add the trigger to hide the layer when the timeline ends as well. Then you can duplicate the layer to create an incorrect feedback layer, and you can replace the check mark with a red cross and you're done. I also want to check the layer options for both layers and make sure this one is unchecked and this one is checked. And the last thing to do is to add this trigger here to reset the score when the timeline starts on the slide. And make sure that in the slide options you have it set to reset to initial state. That way the score variable will reset each time the user comes back to this slide. Well, so far so good. Now it's time to make it interactive. So when the user drags an item to the correct category, we want to do the following. Show the correct feedback layer. We can do this by adding this trigger. Then on the correct feedback layer, we can increase the score by 1. And we also need to hide the element once it's been dropped. Great. Now let's add the logic for when the user drags an item to an incorrect category. We show the incorrect feedback layer, and on the incorrect feedback layer, we decrease the score by 1. And then we hide the element again. And that's it. These are the triggers I need to bind to my element. It's time to test the exercise and see if everything works. And now I can duplicate this element and create 4 more draggable elements. And for the items that belong in the first category, the triggers will look like this. And for the items that belong in the second category, the triggers will look like this. Lastly, if you want to reveal a next button after all items are sorted, you can create a variable to count each drop and set it to increase by 1 when either feedback layer appears. Then on the main slide, add a trigger to show the next button when this variable reaches the total number of items, which is 5 in my case. Or you could just hide the button under all the draggable elements. That's going to be a simpler solution because once all the elements are dragged, you can just reveal this button. Well, I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you for watching.